welcome to the new podcast, A Mick, a Mook, and a Mike, hosted by Billy O'Connor and Frank Pace.
He's Billy O'Connor. I'm Frank Pace. Well, Billy, what started in May of 2019 culminates on September 15th with the publication of our first of 3 collaborations in a book.
Yay!
Yay! If These Lips Could Talk, be published by Acclaim Press. It'll be out September 15th. You guys in the audience, please order it, because I hope we didn't do all of that work for nothing.
Boy, we did a ton of it, too. And the editing, we just banged it back and forth. And every single sentence in that book, Frank would say to me, do we need that? Do we need that word? Do we need that word? Can we eliminate that word? So my name is on it. I'm proud of it. It's the people that Frank ran along across the way in his remarkable life. Each chapter is self-contained. It's an easy read. And it's tight. The book is tight. It's well written. If nothing else, I can say with all pride that we did a lot of work on it, Frank, and it's a good book.
And I'm proud of it, too. I'm proud of it, too.
Good to hear.
Well, yesterday was September 11th.
19th anniversary.
19th anniversary. You talk about my remarkable life. Really, your life was just as remarkable, even more remarkable than mine. We talked about your background, you're being an alcoholic, you're being a gambler, but for 20 years of your life, you call it the proudest years of your life, you served on the New York City Fire Department.
Yeah, and they definitely were the proudest years of my life. It's a funny thing about firemen. You know, when firemen get together at golf outings and sailing trips and ski trips, because we always stay in touch because of the brotherhood. The camaraderie is kind of tough to describe to a civilian. But you got to realize here's the guys that put their life in danger, and they go down a hallway, too far down a hallway or into a smoky building. And they do it for their brothers, for more than anything else. It's, you know, if there's no way a guy's going down a hallway and I'm not going down every inch of that hallway with him. You know, These are guys we eat with, we sleep with. So the camaraderie is kind of remarkable. It's kind of camaraderie you probably only see in the military. But having said that about the bravery and the camaraderie of the fire department, guys that are in the fire department never talk about bravery. Mm-hmm. They just don't do it. It's like it would be akin to saying somebody who's divorced saying, you know, I pay my child support every week and I pay my alimony. Well,
what are you supposed to do?
That's what you're supposed to do. Yeah, you don't take a bow. Exactly. You didn't jump on a grenade. You know, you didn't swing into a burning building and rescue 3 kids. You did what you were supposed to do. So you don't take a bow for that. And firemen don't take a bow for bravery. They look at it as part of their job. That's what they do.
And before we get into September 11th, we need a shout out to the firemen in California for the remarkable job they're doing battling these wildfires, because I mean, we walk outside today, and the air is full of smoke, and nobody can take a walk. It's awful.
The Golden State Bridge, it looks like Mars. It's like red.
Right.
During the day. It's and again, these are different kind of fires that we fought, because we were mostly structural fires. But coming out here and driving 60 miles on I-5 and seeing both sides of the freeway burnt out, it's pretty remarkable. But, so yeah, shout out to those guys, and stay safe out there, brothers. You know, we all got your back. Let's hope to God you pull through it all and get these damn things out. But like I said before, when we get together, firemen, we don't talk about the bravery. It's about the ball breaking. It's about because that's what we do. You know, it's almost a men's club, in the busy houses especially. You're up all night, and you're confined, so you're breaking each other's chops. You know, and everybody seems to have a nickname today. These 2 guys are good friends of mine. You're going to meet Deputy Chief John Sullivan, who we nicknamed Cujo, and then we got Frank Santiago, who we nicknamed Chicklets. You'll probably see why on both of them. But I'm delighted to have them both on. Want to see if we can get them on, Derek?
Okay, let me work them into it.
Blessed to have them.
So they both retired as fire department
Both. One's a retired deputy chief. Frankie retired as a lieutenant. I met Frankie out at lieutenant school.
And what did you lieutenant school?
That's right. We went to
Wait
lieutenant.
a second.
They call it flips.
Wait a second.
Flips.
You retired as a lieutenant?
Yes, I retired as a lieutenant.
What the hell, were they giving us away?
Frankie always says that to me. He says to me, "Who took the test for you anyway? Who took the test for you?" It was funny when I met Frankie.
Hey guys,
I must
John and Frankie, can you guys unmute your mics? So there's a little mic. Just hit the mic.
When I first met Frankie, I must have had 20 guys tell me, "You don't know Frankie Santiago? Frankie Santiago is going to be in that class with you." And I said, "No, I never met Frankie Santiago." And about 20 guys that told him, "You don't know Billy O'Connor? Billy O'Connor's in that thing." But so we were like destined to meet, and Frankie became one of my dearest friends. He taught me how to ski just so we could go skiing together. He's a terrific athlete and everything except for golf. He couldn't hit a golf ball if he had a in the ass with a bass fiddle. But good softball player, karate, remarkable.
Okay.
I don't think he's ever lost a match. Remarkable athlete.
Are they on?
John's on. Frankie needs to turn his mic on. Just hit that mic button for me.
Get into the 21st
There you
century,
go.
Chicklet.
There
There
you
we
go.
go. He's on?
Okay. Hold on. All right.
All right.
There's the island of Fiji.
That's my commute. Here he is, didn't he, huh? All right, look at the backdrop for Frankie.
Wow.
Frankie, I can't read the number 343 if you keep smiling.
Hey, good to meet you guys.
Much too much white. Frank Pace, this is my buddy John Sullivan.
How are you,
Frankie
Frank?
Santiago.
How are you?
My pleasure. I heard a lot about you.
Great.
Now, this is Deputy Chief John Sullivan, retired Lieutenant Frank Santiago, or as I like to call him, you two freaking humps. I really appreciate you guys coming on, man. Yesterday was the 19th anniversary of 9/11. This is Saturday. We're taping we're having the show. So
Let me ask you, first of all, before we get into 9/11, did you cook?
in the firehouse,
Did you cook?
Yeah, I wasn't bad. Everybody could cook at least one good meal. I wasn't bad. I could throw together some chow. I wasn't bad.
Did these guys ever eat your food?
God knows, Frank.
At least you're honest.
All right, so I'm not going to ask you guys if you were there. Obviously, everybody was there at Ground Zero. When did you get there, John? First, what rank were you, John, and when did you get there? At that, you were captain.
And I was doing a bit down in headquarters. So I was supposed to be in the neighborhood, but I was actually up in the Bronx that morning, and it probably saved my life because the guys that were sitting at my desk in my cubicle waiting for me are both dead. They died that morning. So I got there after the South Tower collapsed and just maybe 15, 20 minutes before the North Tower came down.
Were you working that morning? Or were
Yes.
you? Okay. What did you think when the first tower was hit?
Well, I was up. I had to take care of something. I put the traffic on, and they said a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. So I figured it was something, minor. And then I saw it up on the Bruckner. I said, "Oh, Jesus, this is." But as a stupid me, as I saw white smoke coming, I said, "This thing is going to be out by the time I got down there," because white smoke is usually a good sign. But then the second tower got hit. You could see, but there wasn't much information as far as like what size the planes were and whatnot. So, as you went down, you started to realize the enormity of what was happening.
So you had that image in your mind of the Empire State Building getting hit with a small plane when you heard a plane that hit the World Trade Center.
Yeah, and you figure you're going to go down there, you're going to go to work, they'll have some kind of an assignment for you, and, you take care of business, we're all going to go home.
I guess.
Go ahead, Frank.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And then when I was about 6 blocks away, when the North Tower came, or the South Tower came down, it was like, good God, this is on now. It's kind of like it was a whole different ball game then. And you're so involved in the moment that you don't even realize the enormity of the situation because you're dealing with the nuts and bolts of it. Right away on the corner of Liberty and Church, we got a lieutenant, had a compound fracture of his leg. We had him packaged and ready to move. We're going to take him to an ambulance. when all of a sudden you heard this loud rumble, and you didn't know what was going on. Somebody said it might be another plane attacking or something like that. And then the rush of air, and then everything going black. So it really was. And then we realized that was the other tower coming down. And for a little while, the one thing I'll never forget is the dead silence. It was completely black. You could almost chew the air. And you start to wonder, am I dead? Is this what it feels like?
Wow.
And, for probably a couple of minutes, there was no sound. And then slowly you started to hear people yelling, a couple of cops looking for their partner. I mean, we were right on top of this guy, Keith Ruby, that had the broken leg. And then we started, all right, let's get up. You kind of regroup, and it's all right, we got to get him out of here and get him to an ambulance. But it was intense.
Frankie, what were your experiences?
Well, I was retired at the time. I was having coffee with my wife, and all of a sudden I'm watching the news, and I hear an interruption and saying there was a plane crashed into the World Trade Center. And naturally, I'm old enough to remember the small plane that went into the Empire State Building, but thought nothing of it.
Was that 1943? I sort of recall it being 1943.
Not that old.
No. I'm guessing because my mother was working in the Empire State Building that day, and she was off the day the plane flew into the Empire State Building. So I think it was 1940.
It's perhaps their memories from when my folks were talking about it. But that's the first thing I thought of, was that it was a small plane. However, all of a sudden they had live coverage on it, and I had figured, well, maybe a big jetliner had went off course. And then all of a sudden I saw the second one, and I said to my wife, I says, this is a terrorist attack. Now, I had gone to school for terrorist training. And the first thing they told you is that we were going to be attacked. It's not if, it was when. But we were gearing up for a biological attack, and never even thinking about the World Trade Center and the airplanes. So at the time, I lived up in Westchester County, which was close to the Indian Point nuclear plant, and that was one of the targets that were pitted to be hit if at all any time. So right away I told my wife, I said, let's go. We're going to get the grandkids out of school. And I went and I got my grandkids out of school. I went to the bank, took out all the money I can take out, and I told her to go up to. We had a house up in Hunter Mountain. I said, take the kids up there as far away from the nuclear plant as possible. I says, I'm going down. I says, my brothers are buried there. And till today, I get a heavy heart with that.
Yeah, that's obvious enough for all of us. I mean, everybody feels the weight of that day, especially the guys who were there that day. John, I want to ask you again, the two guys that shared that are both dead because you were up in the Bronx, and had you been there, you would have been dead. You hear story after story about that in 9/11, So many guys, if I didn't brush my teeth, if I didn't do this, if I didn't stop at my old firehouse to get my gear, I would have been dead. I wonder if you could elaborate a little bit on it, on how that felt. It's almost like, a guy having a mutual with somebody who was working that day and died. That must be a heavy, horrible feeling.
Oh, absolutely. And there's so many different things, even down at the site. Like I was going down Church Street, and I kept on asking, where's the command post? Where's the command post? And nobody knew. And I was going to make a right on Vesey. Had I made that right, I would have been underneath the building. And the bottom line is that it comes down to, you can second guess it forever. A friend of mine's father, Jack Lynch, who lost his son, Michael, he was a fireman. That day, he just stopped me. He says, you can question it for the rest of your life, or you can accept it wasn't your time. It was my son Michael's time. He said, it's as simple as that or as complicated as that. And, it was, unfortunately, for a long time, I thought maybe I was, they saved me for something good, but apparently not.
I was telling Frankie before that Willie Mulvihill had commented on Facebook and private messaged me, and when he heard you two guys were going to be on, Willie said to me, so let me see if I got this straight. All I got to do is whiten my teeth. He says, get a dark tan. or disagree with everything you say on Facebook. He says,
And I'll make you a star.
But Frankie, I'm going to ask you, what do you think? I don't really want to know what you remember about when you got down there, when you first saw you. When you got down there, both buildings were down, correct?
Correct.
And I don't really want to know what you remember about what you saw when you first got down. Tell me the one thing that's in your mind that you absolutely cannot forget. John just talked about the silence, the eerie, deadly silence of it all. Give me that one thing in your mind that you'll never forget.
Well, when I was down there, I heard alarms, pass alarms going off when I first got down there, and a lot of dust.
Excuse me, for the uninitiated out there, pass alarms are for guys that are civilians. That's on our Scott packs. Alarm goes off when we only have 2 minutes left, 3 minutes left, John?
Of air?
Of air.
It takes about.
Been a while. Been 20 years.
It's a sign you got to get out.
It's a sign you're running out of. Those are pass alarms. So, right. John, you heard the pass alarms from the Scott packs. And
but a lot of when I got down there was a lot of paper that was floating around and a lot of smoke. And one thing I noticed was that there were no furniture, no desk, no chairs, no computers, no cabinets, nothing but dust. And right away they started. They had already assembled lines, so we went up on the pile and we started digging because you couldn't get in there with heavy equipment. So we were digging by hand and just trying to go down as far as possible. And you made a line, a bucket brigade, where you took you dug up some soil until your bucket was filled, and you passed it down, and it just kept on rotating all the way around. I think on the second day I was down there, I had found a woman's arm. Had to be a left arm because he had a wedding ring on it. And I called for the cadaver dogs, and they all came, and we dug and dug and dug and dug. Nothing. The only thing I saw solid was a wheel from a computer chair. Everything else was just dust and paper.
And of course, you guys were breathing all of that, right? I mean, there wasn't anybody with.
Absolutely, yes. The second day I went down, a friend of mine who was in construction, he had given me those industrial masks. So I went to my firehouse and I grabbed somebody's turnout gear, and I went down and I just passed out the mask to my guys. And the first day I went down there, I went to the firehouse right away. I got the equipment. Then I commandeered a bus, and we went and picked up a couple of guys at the next fire station up on Castle Hill Avenue, and we started down. And the bus driver says, "Oh, well, I can't do this." I says, "Oh, yes, you can. You're off this bus." So
do what you got to do, Frank.
So one of the guys says, "Yeah, I got a bus driver's license." I said, "You're driving," and that was it, So we got down there, and Tom Fox, who was the deputy chief at the time, we reported to him, and everything. The rest was history.
I read that over 2,500 toxic contaminants were released in that dust that you guys were breathing.
Absolutely.
Billy, I believe you had some residual effects of that.
Yeah, I've been fortunate. I mean, I've had stuff like GERD and carcinomas and stuff like that. But I mean, there's young guys, 25, 30-year-old firemen, 35-year-old firemen dying of bone cancer that you're not supposed to get until you're like 80 years old, right? I mean, it's been, I don't know how many guys, the exact number that have died since 9/11. I mean, we lost 343 that day,
right?
But since then, the numbers have been astronomical. It's sad. It's terribly sad.
Pardon me, Bill. On
Pardon me, you never said pardon me in your life.
Just
The
wanna,
first time I ever heard
make-
those words out of your mouth, you hump.
just want to make it known that we're burying 4 or 5 guys a month now, continuously, and they just added yesterday. They just added 27 new names onto the board. Now the board is more than there's more names on the after 9/11 of the deceased members than 150 years before 9/11.
It's absolutely tragic. I like to talk about some of the guys that we lost that were so unique. You know, Patty Brown, of course, unique character. Probably our most decorated fireman, right? I mean, won the Gordon Bennett twice, right? Didn't he?
Yeah.
John, twice. And now, by the way, the Gordon Bennett has been changed, and now it's called the Pete Gansey Medal. And Pete Gansey was the chief of our department. And, of course, they set up the command post in front of the buildings because the command post being so many companies are coming down, the command has to keep track of where each company is going, so they have to report it to the command post. And wouldn't you guys like to tell a story about how Pete died?
Well, I know one of the captains who was with him that was on the same detail as me is when the first building came down, they were on West Street, and they all ran across the street into the garage. Now, for some reason, when the second building came down, they all went back across the street, but Chief Gansey ran up the street for some reason, and unfortunately, he got caught in the collapse, and he passed away. But, he was kind of like, at a situation like that, he's the leader. When you show up at a command post, you want to see that guy there in charge giving the orders. And they really kind of cut off the head of our operation. And then it was a scramble. I mean, we recovered very, very quickly and did what we had to do. But when you lose your leader, it's a tough way to start out the operation.
Yeah, you're losing the chief of the department. And besides that, I mean, in general, there was an awful lot of brain power killed at that collapse. You know, a lot of really great firefighters. Oreo Palmer. Frankie, you want to tell us a little bit about Oreo Palmer? He was a friend of yours. Frank, you there?
Oh, maybe that.
We lost him.
Well, let me carry on with John then. We lost Frank.
Maybe that was the ding I heard.
Frankie's modeling career again. He's out the window.
Us.
But Oreo got, from what I remember, Oreo got higher up than anybody else got in the buildings, right? He was transmitting from what, the 80th floor or the 84th floor, John?
Yeah, something like that. He got up very high in the building. I mean, Oreo was in tremendous shape. You know, as I knew him from 46 and 27. And he got up there and he was fighting the fire. He was doing what needed to be done. And unfortunately, that's the problem is you get locked into the operation. You don't know what's going on the outside. And they had indications that things, that the building was potentially going to collapse. And they had given the order to evacuate. And Oreo never got it.
Wow.
Yeah. Now, here's Frankie. He's back.
On the other side.
What? Stay off the tequila in the morning. Stop hitting those buttons, will you? So, Frankie, you knew Oreo well too, as well.
Yeah, Oreo's a real good friend of mine. We used to play football together, and then after the football games, we used to pull out the study cards. We were both studying for lieutenant at the same time, and he was a sweetheart.
Did anybody, John, I'm going to go back to you again and ask you this. Did anybody at the command post that you know of start thinking about collapse? I mean, I heard Joe Callan. I heard Deputy Chief Callan.
Yeah, he whispered that, is anyone thinking collapse? And I believe that started the ball rolling towards getting guys out. But unfortunately, the radio situation, they couldn't really communicate with a lot of people in the building. And, something is we got tremendously brave guys, and they were guys helping people. And they said, I'm not leaving. I can't leave the people that I'm with. And they knew that's the ultimate bravery to stand there. Something's going to happen that's going to hurt you, but I can't leave these people. It was spectacular.
That is absolutely remarkable. And with that, I'm going to segue to Father Michael Judge because he was doing what he did when Michael Judge died. Either one of you want to pick that up and elaborate on it?
Well, Michael Judge was he was a real sweetheart.
One story I got to tell you with Father Mike is a fire in the Bronx with J.P. Sullivan. We very rarely worked together, but we took a beating up on the roof and we're lying in the ambulance and I got an oxygen mask. I think I was half conscious, but Father Judge comes in, he starts saying a prayer over me. And JP jumps up and says, he's not going to die. He just looks at him. He says, the prayer won't hurt him. I know he's not going to die, but he was just such a spectacular man. And like that afternoon, we were down there. We had been working all morning. We're making searches and we're lying on the sidewalk. And this guy, Jackie Boyle, who unfortunately died of September 11th related lung issues, Rescue 1, was by and he said, did you hear about Father Mike? And he told me that he died. And it was like absolutely crushing. That made the whole thing real, that we lost our spiritual leader. And he was just such a spectacular man. And the greatest thing was every Christmas Eve, he would say Mass down in 73 and 42. And he gave you general absolution for the year. So every I never missed that, man.
And any than any other fireman, I'm sure. Hey, we got to look at this. We got to pass. We got to pass. Get down there.
I put a picture of it.
Yeah.
Did you put a picture of Father
Yes.
Mike up?
Yeah,
Good.
I did.
Father Michael, like you said, was an extraordinary man, and everybody loved Father Michael. I mean, how many times he came to Louder 17 and for a commemorative mass for the brothers that had died before 9/11, and he died, from what I understand. He was victim number 1 at 9/11. He was the first guy pronounced. And he was giving last rites in the lobby of the building, I believe, and he was told that the building might come down, and he just wouldn't come out of the building. Am I right with that? Am I saying that story correct?
Absolutely. He stayed, and you can see him in the footage. He's off to the side and he's praying, but he refuses to leave. He wasn't going to leave until his men were able to leave.
Wow. Well, let me ask you guys a question. I'm told by other people who were there, the sounds of people jumping off the building was incredible sounds. Can you comment on that? Did you actually hear that? Because I guess over maybe 200 people were so desperate that they jumped from the World Trade Center rather than escaping the being devoured by the flames.
I think that the number was a lot higher than that, because when they have the footage of the operation in the lobby, in the background you hear boom, 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 boom. Those are, each time you hear that, that's another person that decided to jump out of that building. It was absolutely horrifying. And those were only the people that landed on the canopy. It was absolutely, it's a sound and a sight that you'll never ever forget.
And that sound actually started sounding like a drum solo, right? I mean, there was so many people hitting the pavement. And I've had people ask me, Frank, they said to me, I don't understand how somebody jumps from 100 stories high. And I said, what you don't understand is that you have no choice. Take your hand and hold it over a fire and see how long you can hold it. What happens is you hold it for a second and you pull away. So if you're getting burnt, the alternative is jumping. It's really not an alternative.
Right.
You're jumping. You're going to do whatever you can do to avoid the fire. That's it.
Billy, if you don't mind, I'll tell you a little story about Jeff Johnson. I'm pretty sure all three of us know him. He was assigned to the Marriott, which was a hotel in between the Twin Towers. And they were told to evacuate the place, starting up at the presidential suite on the top floor. As they got up there, they were met with bodies coming through the atrium, people just jumping off in front of them, So anyway, then they heard a big rumble, and it was the first building coming down. And everybody went to the right. Him and a little probie went to the left. They all died. So he was lucky with that. Then he's working his way down, and he gets down to that was the first collapse. He gets down to the 4th floor, and all of a sudden he's trying to help one of the captains, Larry. I can't think of his last name. Anyway, he was pinned there behind the wall, so he was digging through the wall when the second one comes down, and he's with the probie. So he huddles up next to a big pillar, and then once that happens, all the smoke and everything, he turns around, he can't find the kid. The kid had actually
The probationary firefighter.
kid, yeah. He jumped four floors down, and he lived. But he's looking for him, and all of a sudden he sees a Scott pack, which is our oxygen bottles, and he picks it up, and it was his that he left up on the 12th floor, and that had come down. So he escaped both collapses, and he was a mess. As a matter of fact, they have a documentary out called the World Trade Center Towers, and he's in it, and he saved a bunch of people.
Did the probie make it?
Yes, the probie made it, and he made it. What he did was, we would go on ski trips, and this guy was like MacGyver. He would start fashioning things from nothing, and he was very resourceful. And so he was met by a bunch of people from either the New York Times or Time Magazine, and they were pleading with him, please get us out of here. And he met a janitor, and he asked the janitor, he says, I'm looking for something to lower these people down. It was about 50 feet down, which is, 4.5 stories or so. So finally, he saw a little hole, and he looked out. He took the curtains from the conference room. He tied them together. They're both 40 feet high. And he started lowering people down. And then there was a woman who wouldn't go. So he got out, and he asked her to straddle him. And he started coming down, and he got about 10 feet from the bottom. And when I talk about the bottom, it's just a ledge, because there was a big hole that went down another 50 feet. And there was a girder that was on an angle. So he let go, and he hit that and started coming down, and his hand caught a big nut and bolt, and that's what stopped him. And the woman climbed up over him, and then they both walked on that little ledgeway to safety.
And they survived. That's remarkable.
And what makes it remarkable is you have to realize all the chaos that was going on during this time when those people were trying to keep their minds. You had dust flying all over the place, remnants of disaster around you everywhere.
Without a doubt.
And later on, during the dig, the weeks that followed, the months that followed, New York, indeed, the whole country came together behind all the first responders and everything. And there's reports of dowagers making sandwiches, and handing it out to the workers. And of course, without the iron workers, we were dead down there, right? I mean,
absolutely
spectacular.
They were just above and beyond, right?
Well, why don't you go into that, because I've never heard about the iron workers before. What were they doing? Why were they so important to you?
Well, when you're dealing with structural steel, it's got to be cut, it's got to be moved, and they've got to burn through it with torches. And there's only so much that we can do. We can crawl in and around and under a lot of things, but some things have to be moved. And these guys showed up. They were at jobs all over the city. They brought their tools. They walked right off the job site. They were down there. What do you need? They were cutting. These guys were spectacular. I've never seen a group of people just show up and keep on working. They did so much for us and made our job that little bit easier. I can never say enough about the iron workers down there. It really was so impressive, everything that they did down there.
I just got a chill when you talked about how spectacular they were, because just imagine iron workers working, getting paid all over the city, walking off the job immediately, take their tools and head right for the World Trade Center to work for free in a toxic environment. Yeah. And then they're in the unheralded heroes, because without them, John, we were...
And there was nothing like... Somebody say, I can't do that. I never once heard an iron worker. They might make a face, it's going to be, but they figured it out. It was kind of adapt and overcome. But there was nothing that those guys, if you ask them, look, I need to get this, we'll get you there. That was the answer. It was automatic.
Can do.
It really was. Again, I can't say enough about the work they did down there.
And of course, the unheralded medics and everybody else that were down there, EMS guys.
Absolutely. It's one of those things that you had people from all over the city. Like, I'll give you an example. A guy from the neighborhood, Frog's Neck, where I used to live, he showed up and he's there handing out sandwiches. Now, this guy was an Army Ranger in Vietnam. I believe he won the Bronze Star and the Silver Star. And he's down there, and he just says to me, he's thanking me. I says, no, bro, thank you. You came here. This is my job. You came from home. He worked for the MTA, and he was just there because everybody wanted to help. And it's one of those things that I've seen in numerous places, that it's a shame that this country can't go back to September 12th. Not skip the tragedy, but there was a sense of unity, and everybody was trying to help each other. And that was such a tremendous time. And unfortunately, it's long gone, but, that's human nature.
Well, yeah, I read once where, a bird has a left wing and a right wing, but you got to fly with both wings, You can't fly with one. And that's the shame that we are as divided as we are. I'm going to ask you a question on that division and basically how social media helps divide us. Because when I wrote Confessions of a Bronx Bookie, I went on a radio show in L.A., right, for Fraser Smith's show. And I was there to push my book. That's what I was on the show for. But Fraser had done his homework and found out I was a fireman. And now I get blindsided because I go on his show, and the very first question he asked me is not about my book. He says, so you were a fireman in New York City? I said, yeah, 20 years. Proudest years of my life. He says, so was 9/11 an inside job? And I was like, whoa, like what kind of question is that to hit me with off the bat? Unfortunately, we're living in an age of conspiracy theories. There's 20 million people in the United States that think the earth is flat. That's a true statistic. Honest to God. 20 million people think the earth is flat. That's true as God. Because we're living in that kind of era. Like, some people think there wasn't a moon landing. I've heard so many people say, well, okay, of course it was an inside job. So what do you say, First John, what do you say to these people?
Something that unfortunately that there's a lot of microphones in this world, and a lot of people talk when they should be quiet. And in this situation, and I take that to heart, there's so much proof that this was a planned terrorist attack. And the engineering of how the buildings came down, they weren't blown up. I can go on for days about the box columns, and the outside walls were bearing. That they were compromised. 10,000 gallons of fuel in each plane. The reason that the North Tower went down first, even though it was hit second, is because it was hit at a lower point and there was more weight on it. This is proven fact, and I take great exception to anybody that advances a conspiracy theory. This was a terrorist attack, and it killed a lot of good friends of ours.
Yeah, I take extreme umbrage to the same thing. Anybody who points to it as a conspiracy theory. Frankie, your thoughts?
Well, I always thought the world was flat. That's why I don't go too far from my house. I'm afraid to fall off.
Well, I tell you how I handled it, and I had told them that, of course, I thought it was absolutely ridiculous, and when I talked about Vinnie Dunn, and collapse, the way things collapsed, a V-shaped collapse, a lean-to collapse, and a pancake collapse, and of course, it looks like explosions when you realize that you have a pancake collapse and everything's coming down this kind of massive energy. That every 5 floors it blew out the windows. It looks like somebody's using dynamite. But that's just energy seeking a place to escape. And it's going to escape its weakest place, But what's going on? Anyway, the moonland, I'll tell you how ridiculous it is to assume that it could be faked or a setup job is because they even have there's so many conspiracy theories now, they have a formula for debunking them. And it would take to fake a moon landing, Frank, I read it would take 311,000 people to be in on the fix to fake the moon landing. And given that amount of people, they actually have a formula that in 3.5 years, it would come out and somebody would find out about it.
Well,
So,
I'll tell you about the moon landings. One of my good friends, David Scott, was the captain of Apollo 15. So he walked on the moon. He was the first person to drive on the moon. And he said,
they were on the moon.
He said they were on the moon. He said they were on the moon.
They weren't in the studio.
They weren't in the studio.
So, I mean, if 9/11 was a put-up job, I mean, it would have taken, never mind 311,000, it would have took 1.5 million, 2 million people to be in on the fix. You know, it's absurd. And given that formula, the news would have been out in 6 months, you know. So I took umbrage to it, too, because it's an affront to us, I think.
Billy, getting back to 9/11, the public doesn't know how devastating of a hit that the New York City Fire Department took. Like you said before, the chief of department, Pete Gansey, the first deputy commissioner, John, help me out. What's
Yeah.
Feehan, right? You had, of course, Father Judge, Ray Downey, who was he led everybody at the Oklahoma City bombing. He went out there and took care of everything. So you're talking about years and years and years of experience that we lost that day.
Talent and experience. Patty Brown. I mean,
Patty Brown, sure. Yep.
I heard a story that Dennis Leary had told. I think he was because Patty Brown was a hockey player and Leary's father was a Boston firefighter. And he knew Patty Brown well because I think they played hockey together. But he was on a show. I think it was Letterman. And Leary was getting interviewed. And it was about a month after 9/11. And he talked about losing, his friend Patty Brown. And somebody had stopped Patty before he was going in and said, you going up there? You going in? He says, of course I'm going in. That's our job. And he just pushed him out of the way and went in. Again, I was talking before you guys came on that firemen take bravery as a matter of course. They don't think about it. They don't. It's like taking a bow for paying child support. You're doing what you're supposed to do. And when we get together, we never talk about, hey, John, what was the worst job you were ever at? Or Frankie, when you crawled down that hallway. That's not what we talk about. We talk about, hey, you remember the time I broke this chief's balls? Remember the time I did this to this guy? Right? I mean,
hey, Frankie, let me ask you a question.
Yeah.
Rumor around here is that Billy used to put his fire helmet in the oven just to make it look crustier. Any truth to that?
Yeah. I remember the first time we had a job together, Billy and I, and the captain goes, "Get in there, Billy." And Billy goes, "But Captain, the place is on fire."
I tell you a story. I've always been and always was terrible with tools, right? So I was in the engine for about 5 or 6 years, and I switched over to the truck. And for the uninitiated out there, with the fire department, we have an engine in the truck. An engine carries the water. An engine carries the hose. An engine puts out the fire. The truck's job is to vent, force the doors, entry, and search for victims. So you operate without water, but you use a lot of tools. Mm-hmm. And I'm terrible with tools. But I went into the truck, and we had a car wreck on the Bruckner Expressway one night about 4 o'clock in the morning. Real bad one, And the car looked like an accordion. And I'm standing there with my hook and my Halligan, and the lieutenant turns around and goes, Mike, go get the jaws of life. Joe, go get an axe and a Halligan. I said, Lou, what do you want me to do, Lou? Lieutenant, what do you want me to do? He's O'Connor. He says, you got one of those typical useless Catholic educations. He goes, just stand there and quote Shakespeare.
So let me ask you guys a question. In July of 2018, I believe, I was in New York producing Murphy Brown, and I was away from my family because they live in California. So I took a trip down to the Memorial Museum. I was very moved. I don't ever remember being so moved by thinking what was there and what was there now. And it was very moving to me. Have you guys been back?
You know, myself, Frank, I stayed away from there for years and years and years. And I got a personal invitation, and they have it set up where the firemen have a consoling room that they can just, you know, pray or whatever they're going to do. And it took me quite a while to get down there, but once that opened up, I said it was very tastefully done, and it was a great tribute. And that I don't know if you remember seeing a big fire truck inside the museum that was all crushed.
Yes, I do.
That
Yes,
was
I do.
Patty. That was Patty Brown's company, and 3 truck. But it was done very, very, very well.
So I didn't know that they had a room down there. I haven't been back down there. I haven't been able to do that, to bring myself to go back down there yet. And of course, I didn't see anything near what you two guys had seen, because I didn't get there till well after the collapse. But when you go down there, there's an actual room that you can console yourself for firemen,
Yes.
or
When you go down, Bill, if there's a line there, you just go to the front of the line, say you're a New York City fireman. They'll take you in and they'll bring you to this room. It's almost like a little chapel, and then you spend as much time as you want there, and then you're free to just go around to all the different exhibits. My wife's cousin was a Port Authority cop, and she's the only one of 7 that survived.
Wow.
And
Wow.
that's another story for another day. But she got out of the building, the second building to collapse, and the concussion lifted her up and threw her across the street into the side of the building. And all I saw in news coverage were people carrying her out, all encrusted in all of that dust and everything.
Wow.
And really, really shook me and my wife.
John, have you been back?
It took me a long time, like Frankie, to go back down to the site. I went down after they built the memorial. I still haven't been able to bring myself to go to the museum. It's too raw and too emotional.
Yes.
That, and the problem is that as more and more friends die, it doesn't get into it, and it's kind of like the phone rings. It used to be, if the phone rang, it was, oh yeah, there's a retirement party, or, we're doing this, we're going on a trip. Now, every time the phone rings, it's somebody else is dying. And it's a tough thing to deal with. September 11th overall, it's one of those things that I use the phrase for the fire department. It was the day the music died, like Don McLean's song.
Right.
We
Right.
still continue to do what we do, but it'll never ever be the same as it was. That a certain amount of the joy has been taken out of it forever, unfortunately.
yeah.
Very true.
Yeah, I could definitely appreciate that. I know a lot of guys that were on the job before and after will say that the job will not the same and never be the same. I don't think that's not a unique opinion by any stretch of the imagination. And the amount of guys, I get the calls every day. Pray for this guy. Pray for this guy. He's not doing well. He's not doing well. Pray for this guy. And not only does it remind us of our own mortality, but it reminds us how fortunate we are. Because like you said, so many stories. A guy stopped for donuts. The guy took an extra couple of shaves on his thing, and he missed the butt to go here and there and made the wrong turn. You made the wrong turn. John, when you were down there, you would have turned down that thing, you were dead man. You made the right turn. You made the right turn. You always go right, you hump. You never go left.
No, Billy.
Come on, I spoon-fed that one to you.
Billy.
Yeah.
When Larry Mack got the Irishman of the Year, and he was giving his little speech, and he attributed Kalani, Mike Kalani, to saving so many lives. He should get 15 Gordon Bennett medals. And the reason for that was that he was in a caravan of fire trucks going down from the Bronx to Manhattan. He made the wrong turn. And because he made the wrong turn, all those guys were spared, because just as they got there, the tower was coming down.
So he did the wrong thing at the right time.
Exactly.
Like Columbus. How we doing, Derek? You want to? All right. I appreciate you guys coming on, man. I can't tell you how thrilled I am that this John. I haven't seen you in been a good bit, 20 years or so. And,
He's held up better than you.
And I don't know if you noticed, Frankie, but I gave Billy Rendino the name Blinky, right? I always call him because of the squints. He was always squinting, so I gave the name Blinky. But John did me one better, and he nicknamed him Mr. Wonderful.
We all worked together in '94. Myself, Blinky, and John.
And you had Wild Billy Cola down there too, didn't you, for a while?
Oh my God, yeah.
Chief Cola. I can tell you a couple stories. Oh yeah, he was the leader of the band, all right. And what a band leader he was. Wild Bill Cola. I can tell you about some stories. We went to the Caribbean, but I really don't think I should tell them on the air at this tender moment.
Not at all. Hey, Frank, put it this way: we had 3 Bills, 3 Wild Bills, and Billy O'Connor was the least wild.
Wow.
That's true.
Wow.
True as God.
Well,
again, thank you so much. I'm Frank.
And I salute you guys for your amazing acts of bravery and heroism. I can't imagine what it took for you guys to be firemen. Again, I salute you guys for everything you've done and for all the contributions you've done at 9/11 and in the intervening years.
Thank you so much, Frank.
You betcha.
Thank you very much.
And by the way, Frank, I had just spoken to Matty Kilcullen. He says to say hello.
Holy Christ! You know him? That Irish.
Sure.
Holy Christ! He's a beauty.
Listen, I love you both. You couple of humps. And again, thanks very much for coming on. You're the best. I appreciate it. Great seeing you, John.
Yeah, Billy.
And we're gonna have that meal when next time I come to New York. When the plague lifts, and we're gonna have a nice meal and sit down and confront each other. You hump.
And Billy.
Maybe Mr. Alligator Arms. Every time it comes to paying the bills, he's got, we call him T-Rex. He can't reach into his pocket.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know what? Make sure I have your address, both of your addresses, and I'll send you copies of the book.
Oh, that sounds great.
Of our books, These Lips Could Talk.
All right, my brothers.
Great.
Love you. Thanks so much, buddy.
My pleasure meeting you, Frank.
Thanks
Take
so
care,
much.
brother.
Okay, guys.
Take care, guys.
Take care, John.
Take care, Frankie.
All right.
You bet. So we're good to go for that. That was an incredible thing for you to have on those 2 guys on. They're just
real people.
I'm almost speechless. It was so touching and so moving.
They're just real guys, man.
Right.
They were just real people. That's pretty much. And I'm glad that John made such an issue about the iron workers, Frank, because
I had never really heard of. I mean, I never really attributed the iron workers did, and I never realized they were so important. Of course, if I thought about it, I would realize and know that how important they were. But incredible to me, so many people coming together, and like John said. America was never as united as it was on September 12th. And that was, the type of America we should strive to get back to.
Without a doubt. We have to, Lincoln, house divided itself cannot stand. We just can't be this divided. And on that note, I watched something last night on Netflix, and I recommend everybody watch this. Everybody, you have to watch this. If you don't watch anything at all this year, it was a documentary called The Social Dilemma. And it showed you how Facebook works and the guys behind the design about why we're so divided. It's about, they don't sell your information. Like I was always under the impression that Facebook is selling our information. They don't at all. Their whole paradigm is to see how many clicks they can get.
Right.
That's their whole paradigm. And,
right.
and some of these algorithms have actually gone out of control, that they're just getting better and better and better at finding out how to attract your attention.
Yep.
So, and they talked about 13-year-old kids, little girls, suicide rates going up because of, a social issue, social media issues, Mm-hmm. But I urge you to watch this because it'll give you an idea of why the country's so divided. Your Facebook feed, Derek, your Facebook feed and mine are all totally different. I mean, it just depends on whatever they can get you to click on, you know?
Right.
So on that note, I just got to tell you, just to kick it, and I'll put this to bed. I have realized I'm a social media junkie because I'm pushing, if these lips could talk, we're pushing a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. So I'm on social media all the time. So I said, you know what? I'm going to watch this show. It's an hour and a half. I'm going to put the phone over here, turn the volume down. I'm not going to shut it off, but I ain't answering no notifications. I'm not touching it. And I didn't. 2 hours later, I pick up the phone, and I'm really going to lay off a lot of Facebook. But I pick up the phone, and there's a notification from Jennifer O'Connor, who's my wife, who's sitting next to me for 2 hours and hasn't picked up her phone, right? And the notification is 5 minutes ago, she sent me a private message. Well, I said, look at this. They got a private message. What it was Facebook realized, and this is the algorithm, this is what explains to you in the show, the social dilemma. It explains to you that when you don't answer their notifications, when they can't get your attention, they go to the number one thing that will get your attention.
Your wife.
Which was my wife sending me a message which she never sent because I hadn't picked up my phone in 2 hours.
Wow.
Now that's scary.
You were a gambler, correct?
Yeah, a compulsive gambler and a bad gambler.
Okay. So the football season starts tomorrow. It actually started on Thursday night, but the real football season, the NFL starts tomorrow night. So we're going to introduce your lock of the week. Every Saturday, we're going to ask you to select a pick that you feel is the best bet of the week. So why don't we go ahead with that?
I'm going to give you a little prelude to that first. I was a bookmaker for 7 years. And the reason I became a bookmaker, because I was a compulsive gambler, Frank, and I couldn't stop gambling. I owed 6 bookmakers. I owed about $60,000 in credit cards. I owed everything, right, because I couldn't stop gambling. So I became a bookmaker because I figured, let me go ahead and take this compulsion and turn it to my advantage, because I'll still get the action, but at least I'll be on the right side of it. So when you're paying 10% juice is vigorous. So you have to bet 110 to win 100.
And what is vigorous? Juice is vigorous.
Vigorous is 10%.
Speak a language that people know. Juice is vigorous.
The vigorous. Vig is, if I want to bet Frank, say Derek, I'm a bookmaker. Derek wants to bet Frank $100. He likes Dallas. 4 points over the Giants. Frank likes the Giants. So most people think that as a bookmaker, I take Frank, it's $100. I lay it off against Derek's $100, and I take $10. Whoever the loser has to pay 110 to win 100. If you win, you bet 100. You win, you get 100. If you lose, you pay 110. 10% juice, vigorous. So you can't beat the vigorous because 10% is
10%.
So I'm going to give you picks. And believe me when I tell you, I take these things seriously. I spent about 5 hours of homework looking at numbers. Now, full disclosure, I couldn't tell you a player on either starting team anymore. I don't even pay attention to their names. But when a bookmaker puts up a number, they are laser accurate. They figured in the injuries. They figured in field conditions. They figured in whether the players are tired. When they put up a number, that number's on the money. So I study the numbers. I don't pay attention to anything else. I put up the numbers of 15 different bookmakers, and I look at every numbers. I look at changes that look like an aberration. So this week I came to a conclusion. I like this game. It's a 4 o'clock game. We're going to see what's really cool about this little
formula.
Not formula, but this little experiment that we're going to do. I'm spending 5 hours a week.
No, don't talk. Don't talk about what we're going to do. Just give me your pick.
All right. My pick for this week is the 4 o'clock game. I like the Arizona Cardinals over the San Francisco 49ers, +7. Arizona, +7 over the San Francisco.
So what does
49ers.
What does +7 mean?
You're going to take the Cardinals. You're getting 7 points. So to lose that bet, San Francisco has to win by more than 7 points.
Okay.
And I don't think they're going to beat the Cardinals by more than 7 points.
So San Francisco's not going to beat the Cardinals by more than 7 points.
Correct. I like the Cardinals.
You like the Cardinals. Okay, so that's your lock of the week. Now, I have put no time into this at all. Derek, you can pick out another game, and tell me what game you're picking for just any game at random. Pick it out. Tell me what the spread is, and I'll tell you who I think is going to win.
Okay, hang on a second. Let me grab this.
You one game you have to pick out, and you don't know it off the top of your head? Holy Christ, you're a human. I don't just tell me the name of the team.
No, I can't get it up here. Hang on.
Well, the Giants are playing Pittsburgh.
Okay, Giants in Pittsburgh. Okay, I'll pick Giants in Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh is a
Okay.
6.
No. How much?
Pittsburgh's a 6-point favorite over the Giants.
Pittsburgh's a 6-point favorite over the Giants. I'm not even going to ask you where they're playing. I imagine it because they're playing in Pittsburgh. I'm going to take Pittsburgh.
So your pick is Pittsburgh.
My pick is
-6.
Pittsburgh. My pick is the lock of the week is Pittsburgh.
Pittsburgh -6 over the Giants.
-6 over the
Mine
Giants.
is the Cardinals +7 over the 49ers.
Okay.
And this is going to be a really interesting experience because I always tell people, I get a quick story. My son, who's 32 years old, his friend started betting, his friend Carlo or whatever. He started betting. And he says, hey, Dad, my buddy Carlo's been betting, he says, and I told him he used to be a bookie. And can he call you up and ask you for some advice? I said, sure, have him call me up. I'd be glad to give him some advice. So the kid calls me up, and I don't know who the kid is, but he says, so Timmy told me, my son's name is Timmy, that there used to be a bookie. I said, yeah. He goes, so could you help me with my football betting? I said, yeah. I tell you, no problem. Let me tell you what to do. I said, look at the lines. The lines come out Monday morning. Look at the lines in the paper. I said, take a good notice of them. Then Tuesday when you get the paper, take a look at a line that moves in the opposite direction from the direction you think it should move in.
Mm-hmm.
For example, San Francisco's 7 over the Cardinals. You think they should be 9 over the Cardinals. Well, the line dropped to 6. I said, the line's going the wrong way. I said, take that game and bet that game because it doesn't make sense. And I says, and that's the way I bet. So the guy says, wait, let me write this down. The line goes the other way. Blah, blah, blah. So I give him this whole spiel, and he says to me, oh, thanks a lot, Mr. O'Connor. He goes, really, thanks a lot. He goes, I'll give you a call in a couple of weeks and tell you how I'm doing. I said, no, you don't have to call me. Don't call me. I know how you're going to do. You're going to lose. I said, you're going to lose. Don't you? Everybody loses. I said, you can't win. Everybody loses. I don't care who you are, how many handicappers you follow. You're going to lose. It's that simple. I had Blinky, my buddy Blinky, and we talked about it on the FDNY. Blinky was my bookmaking partner, right? And Blinky, even though we were getting tons of action by bookmaking, he he still bet. He would still bet himself. He bet like $1,000 on a game on Sunday. So he comes up to me one day and he says, that's it. He said, I'm done losing. He said, I'm done. He said, I lost 5 straight weeks. He said, I'm done. He goes, look at this. This is a service. He says, for $500, they're going to give you the bet of the century. $500. He goes, they only release it once a year. I said, listen to me. Listen to yourself. The bet of the century, but they release it once a year for $500. Don't you realize it's a scam? He said, I don't care. I'm calling these guys up. So he calls the guy up, and he's on the phone with him. And the guy says, did you pay the $500? Yeah. Did you put the 3 numbers in from the back of your credit card? Yeah. He goes, give me the game. So the guy says, now listen carefully. This is our bet of the century. You can't give this to anybody else. This game costs $500. He said, all right. I paid the money. He said, give me the game. What's the game? He says, the San Francisco 49ers. And Blinky says, the 49ers? Wow. He says, even though Montana's out? The guy says, Montana's out? He goes, you son of a bitch.
I know. I was listening to the radio the other morning, and a guy comes on with a football tout. And it comes on with a commercial. And he says, call in this week only. I'm going to give you the Thursday night lock of the week for the year. This will be the Thursday night lock of the week for the year. And I'm saying, he's probably only going to give that out 17 more times this season.
Exactly. Don King, I mean, because, a lot of people think these tout services, what they'll do is if they get 5,000 people to call, well, they give you the Giants, they give you Dallas, the same game, 2,500. So 2,500 people have to win.
Mm-hmm.
And next week they'll divide it again, 1,250. By the time they get down to like 100 people, they've given 5 straight winners, and the guy will pay anything for the information,
Mm-hmm.
But it reminds me of Don King. A lot of people don't know when Don King got started. As a kid, he was 6 years old.
Why don't you remind people who Don King was?
Don King, famous promoter.
Boxing promoter.
Boxing promoter, exactly right. Looked like he combed his hair with a firecracker, right?
Right.
But he used to do that. That was all by design. So in a 20,000 arena, you could pick him out in their ringside. Look, there's Don King. But he famously went to the fight in Zari. He went in the limousine there on his way there.
Zaire.
Zaire, excuse me.
That was the George Foreman fight.
Yeah,
The Rumble in the Jungle.
The Rumble in the Jungle. He went in the limousine with Foreman and came back with LA.
Where did he go to?
To the fight in Zaire. You hump. In Zaire. So he went in the limousine with Foreman and
He
came back with the
Ali.
winner. You
Yep.
gotta love him.
Yep.
I mean, but Don King got his start. As cute as he was, 5 or 6 years old, he used to go to number shops in Harlem, and he'd sell peanuts. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Sell peanuts for a nickel a bag, whatever. He'd buy a big barrel of peanuts and sell them for a nickel a bag. And every one of them, he'd put a little tip on the number. What the
Sure.
what the
Numbers
number
runner.
is.
Yeah.
The number at the back of the.
The handle.
The handle, yeah.
The last 3 numbers at the end of the racetrack handle are considered the numbers for the week.
Exactly.
For the day.
So King would put.
And when you play the numbers, everybody used to play the numbers with their milkman or their bookie. My grandmother always used to play the numbers with the bread man. So the Bellantonio bread man would bring the bread to my grandmother's house, and she would give him 3 numbers that she would get out of a dream book. If she dreamed about a fire, she'd go to the dream book, and fire would be number 996. So she would play 996, and it's remarkable. I think she was born with a horseshoe up her ass, because it was remarkable how many times she hit.
Well, of course, the thing with the numbers is if you're picking 3 numbers in a row, the odds of that happening is 1,000 to 1 because 999 to 1, right? Because you got to hit 3 consecutive numbers, and of course they only pay you 600 to 1, so they're shaving like 40%. So it's for the poor people. Poor people play the numbers, but Don King.
But you could play the numbers for a nickel.
Exactly, and that's what.
That's why you say poor. It was number for the poor people.
Exactly, poor people in Harlem. They're trying to make. And it gives them an interest for the day. They might bet $1 on the number, 50 cents. But Don King, at 6 years old, was selling peanuts in number shops. And he put a tip on the number in every bag, a different number, of course, in every bag. And then he'd make a note of who he sold those peanuts to. So if that number come in, he'd go back and see the guy and ask him for a tip. Smart, 6 years old.
Yep.
I mean, we were talking before about firemen and nicknames, and good friend of both of ours, Tommy Martin, was a chief, and he had big ears. He looked like a car door was left their doors open. So everybody called him affectionately. Everybody loved him. They used to call him Chief Wingnut. Everybody called him Wingnut. And John Sullivan, well, he has a big head, so everybody used to call him Cujo. And Frankie, obviously, with the teeth, his white teeth. Everybody knows him as Chicklets on a job,
That's a pretty funny story about Wingnut.
Wingnut.
So why don't you tell the people how they can, we got 2 things to wrap up now. Why don't you tell the people how they can continue to watch a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike, and then I'll finish up with the book.
Yeah, all you brother firefighters and new viewers out there, Frank and I are both delighted you tuned in. I hope you enjoyed the podcast, the video cast. I know a lot of you guys are not exactly tech friendly, so it's simple enough to watch us. You can just go to a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike on Facebook, and
or YouTube.
Or YouTube channel, a Mick, a Mook, and a Mike. And you can watch it at your leisure. If you're bored on a Wednesday, you don't have to watch it Saturday when we're live. You can watch it whenever you want. We're going to have a very diverse show. Obviously, today was a 9/11 show. Next week, we have a really special guest, which blows my mind, a friend of Frank's. We're going to have NBA legend, ABA All-Star, Artis Gilmore. So I'm just thrilled to just have him on the air with us. And Frank is going to choose a few words about our book. And
Yeah, I'm just going to remind everybody that it's really special to Billy and I because our first collaboration will be released on September 15th. Go to acclaimpress.com or go to amazon.com. Put in if these lips could talk. If you put it in over the weekend, you'll probably have it by Wednesday or Thursday. And it's pretty gratifying to me. I told a lot of good stories in it. Some people are going to be really happy. Some people will not be so happy. But that's the way life is.
A man's got to do what a
Man's got to do what a man's got to do.
Thank you again, John Sullivan, Deputy Chief John Sullivan, retired, and Frankie Santiago, retired lieutenant, for taking the time to be on our show. I love you both. You know that. And thanks, everybody out there, for listening in.
See you next week.
We'll see you next week.